Means and the Guess Who, and God, the list goes on and on. And, there's so many Juno Award-winning artists there, but I think because it's an isolated city, we sort of had to make our own scene, right? A lot of people. I'm 47, so I graduated in 1996. So it was a very different city back then, and a lot of people didn't come through there. You didn't see a lot of touring artists. Even like the big shows didn't come through Winnipeg. It just kind of was this. It's kind of like you heard like a lot about why the grunge scene happened in Seattle. It was sort of this dead zone of like music and culture. Like people didn't go there, but inside of it, there's this massive bubbling culture. On top of that, it was really well funded by the government there. So there's an NDP government. The arts is very important to Manitobans. It's weird. It's like a conservative province with like left-leaning social values, but right-wing like economic. Like it's a very weird dynamic, right? Of really big rural and a giant city of 700,000 people. That's not giant, but for Winnipeg it is, or for Manitoba rather. So anyways, I grew up in Winnipeg. I never planned on being on music. Of course, as like anybody, like a kid, you always aspire to be in a band and being a rock star. But when I was 16 years old, I saw my first scratch. No, I saw my first scratch DJ in Winnipeg. It was Mixmaster Mike, and I was like, holy shit, I need to do that. I want to do that. And I did everything in my power. I was really lucky. My father was a musician. My mom was a professional ballroom dancer. My brother's a stage hypnotist, of all things. He hypnotizes people for a living. I was in university taking politics. Sorry to list a long story, but just kind of give you a background on how I ended up here. Because I feel like a lot of people in the music biz didn't mean to get into it, and we just sort of kind of stumbled into it. Anyways, I dusted it off. I found some old Technique SL1000s, turntables. Those were broadcast turntables. And I had to cut out a big wood thing. I had to place these things. I had to put the tone irons separately, and there was no pitch control. So I was just fucking around, and that was my introduction to music. And I started just DJing parties in my mom's basement when they'd be gone. I'd be like all of my friends would come over, and I'd be DJing down in the basement. And then in university, I accidentally started playing in a band. I actually showed up. I showed up to play with another band at this Jamaican bar called Braemar Bakery. It was a Monday night, and I showed up. And that band had been fired, and another band showed up to play, and they said, why don't you stay? And that ended up being a band that I played in called Moses Mays and the Funk Family Orchestra, and ended up playing in that band for a decade, and played probably over 500 shows, played in front of 30,000, or maybe it was 20,000. It was 20,000, might be embellishing that. But it was Montreal Jazz Fest. I played in front of 3 the next night. That was really a kick in the ego, if you know what I'm talking about. You're like, holy crap, I'm on top of the world. And then I'm in Hamilton playing to 3 people. It was like, damn, we still have a lot of ways to go. But I spent a lot of time on the road, and that's where I kind of cut my teeth, just as an artist, but also as a business person. I did all the releases, I booked all our tours, I did all the management. And at the same time, I was taking politics at University of Winnipeg, and eventually I just sort of started pursuing music full time. And then, I don't know, what is this, 17 years ago? I transitioned from being an artist and I became an agent. I hit my 30s. It was kind of like I'd been on the road for a long time. It was really hard making money in an 8-piece band, to be totally honest. It's crazy. I'll talk about that whole thing. It was crazy to see how much money we used to make back then. Like $1,000 offer back in 2002 was like, holy shit. We're getting paid $1,000. That was amazing, right? Now you're like $1,000, like it's like nothing, right? It's like so crazy. But I toured in that band for a long time, and then Paquin was my agency and that's how I had that relationship. I saw them, the president Julian and the vice president Todd Jordan, at a show. I made a joke about them hiring me as an agent. We all started laughing, like, and then they were like, you looking for a job? And that was it. The next day I went and saw him. I was hired as an agent right away, and that was 17 years ago. And sort of transitioned from being an artist to an executive, which was a whole fucking weird experience too, right? Because all my peers and musicians all of a sudden become people that I hung out with and collaborated with. Well, hung out with, but all of a sudden they're all pitching me. Like, do you want to be my agent? Do you want to be my agent? And I was just like, I had no idea what to do. Anyways, that's just sort of like my Coles notes of my story of how I ended up here. In 2020, I quit Paquin. I took 30 of my artists with me, and I founded Midnight Agency with my business partner, Nick Middleton. And that's it. That was 5 years ago. There's 10 employees there now. There's 65 artists. And I'm just still here in this game called music. It's really hard. It's not easy. There you go. big mouthful of introduction to myself.
Awesome. Yeah, that's super sick. Like it's lovely to hear that you like didn't want to end up here, but you somehow stumbled upon it, and then because you like worked hard for it, and you've seen like a lot of success with it. So that's super awesome. Some context for the room here, we have a lot of like aspiring producers, aspiring DJs, and they're kind of starting out their career and then like finding their sound and things like that. So definitely everyone's like really curious, what is the value of an agent? What does it bring to an emerging artist, and what is the right time for someone who's kind of emerging to find an agent and seek out something like that?
It's a good question, and you know, because I beyond this today, I actually sat down with 2 artists looking for me to sign them. It's actually like a nonstop thing. You know, there's artists pitching us all the time, and always the question is how do you get an agent? Like, what's the secret sauce for that to get done? And I think everyone's path is very different of to why I signed them. It could be I really love the music and I want to get in early. 2, they have a business that's starting to blossom and they need help of like a professional like myself to start maintaining it and take it to the next level. 3, I might have a relationship with their manager or label where they're like, Grant, you have to sign this. We need you to do it. Or, you know, or 5, it's like a legacy artist and I'm just like, holy shit, I got to sign that. I'm just super into it. I guess like the bottom line is like, you don't, a lot of what I say to the young artists is I don't make sense for you and you don't make sense for me right now. And the one thing I have to stress is like, and I'm thinking back to my experience with my own band, because just recently I reformed my band after 15 years and it's taught me a ton of lessons about all of this, you know, and especially about fan building, community building, being part of a scene and building that before things like me come along. Because agents like me, I can't help you build an audience. Like I can't help you build fans. Like to a certain degree I can, but those first years where it's really do it yourself, that's not what I do. That's not what agents are good at. And especially an agent like myself, I work at sort of a higher level. The calls that I can make, I need artists at a certain level for me to make those calls. But you know, that whole thing of just sort of building a community, right? Starting locally. I'll put it this way, you know, my band, this is what I learned from my band. We played a show 15 years later. It was a reunion show. We sold 1,100 tickets in Winnipeg. And what I learned from that is I showed up and I went, holy shit, this isn't a reunion just for the band. This is a reunion for that entire community. I'm getting teary thinking about it because it was really emotional. I'm like crying because we were all crying backstage like, holy shit, how emotionally draining is this? Look at all this love that people were just pouring out to us on stage, you know, as we're pouring it back going, wow, we haven't felt like this in 15 years. Do you remember this? Do you remember being 20 in our 20s and doing this together and staying out till 2 a.m. and then going to the after party? Like, that's what it was, you know? And I went, wow, like how powerful is that? And an agent didn't help us build that. We built that. We did that. We played every goddamn night. You know, we played to nobody for years. We did everything that we were supposed to do. And it may not happen for you. I don't know. There is that je ne sais quoi, right? Like, I don't know how it happened. I know it happened and we did things to get there. But I think it's always like, you always got to look at the successes you have each way. And what didn't you accomplish, but what did you accomplish? You know, like, we were big into vision boards. I think about the things I want all the time and I manifest them. And I don't know if, you know, I'm sure you've heard of The Secret. It's kind of lame. Maybe it's a little hippy dippy, but I really believe in that stuff. You know, like that award I won for Agent of the Year. I thought about that shit when my boss won it. When I saw Julian Peckin, I was like, I want that. How am I going to do that? What are the things after I won that? I remember an artist I met, someone goes, hey, this is Grant. He just won the Canadian Allied Agent of the Year. He's the best agent in the country right now. And the artist goes, how did you do that? And I went, wow, what a great fucking question. I'm like, I don't know, but I know, right? Like I don't know, like I may have never accomplished that, but I do know that if I didn't do the work that I thought to do to get there, I still have results. Here I am with my own agency and I have staff and I'm building something. Like that right there was like a reward in itself, right? And that's sort of just icing on the cake. So anyways, back to the question of like getting an agent. You don't need one until you need one. And honestly, like we find you guys, like we will find out about you. Someone will tell us about it. You know, some promoter, someone on the circuit will be like, hey, yo, check this artist out, they're killer. Or, hey, they're selling out all these venues all over Ontario. That's the sort of key words. Like everybody, the music scene's so small, and you'll hear about it. We'll hear about you, and then eventually, you have a meeting, you get together, then you just sort of find out if things align. Like, does my network suit you? Does it suit you? Does it suit you? Does my network work for you? That's always what I think about too. Can I help you as an artist get to where you want to go? And there's some artists that I absolutely love their music, but I'm like, that's not what I do. That's not what I'm good at, and that's not what I've become known for. So there you go. It's a really hard question, but this guy right here showed up at our office years ago and just randomly walked in the door, and here we are years later saying hi again and going, holy shit. And you're just like, that was a turning point for me. Being brave, making yourself uncomfortable, saying hello. Every agent's different. There's lots of agents. I'll tell you, the agency world's really nasty sometimes. There's a lot of personalities that I would love just to go the fuck away. It's very competitive. There's some people that are all in about the money. There's lots of egos. There's other people that just love music and just want to be a part of it and really give a shit. Some agents are in it for the money. Some agents are in it for the music. Some agents are in it for the prestige. I'll end it with this. It's not about the money, but it's about the money. I'll put it this way, and I've said this many times already today because I spoke with a couple other artists today. I had one artist. Usually, artists ask me, "Hey, okay, so why won't you sign me?" I'll say, "It's just not the right time." And then they'll go, "Well, do you know other agents I can pitch?" And I'll say, "There's Feldman, there's Pecan, there's probably other ones, but they're small, but I don't know them." And then they'll say, "Well, why aren't there more agencies?" And I say, "Okay, how much are you earning right now?" The artist will go like, "Well, 30 grand a year in live music." Okay, so how much is that for me at 10%? And they're like, $3,000. I say, okay, I'm 47 years old. I've got a family. I live in Toronto. What's like the minimum amount of money? Someone throw a number. What's the minimum amount that you'd want to make to have a house or an apartment, go on vacations? What, 100 grand? 100 grand? Maybe 100 grand? Like, you know what, 100? Sure. Sure. How many of you do I need to book in order to make that kind of money? Right? And then how much are you earning per gig? $1,000? Okay, so that's 30 shows. So let's actually break it down even for a little easier. Say I've got 10 artists making 100 grand each. That's 10,000. That's 10,000 an artist. That's 100 grand for me. Let's say they're booking 30 shows. That's 300 shows to manage in a year. It's a lot of work, right? And then you got to think about, I got to have bank accounts. I got to have a bookkeeper. I might probably have an assistant. I'm going to need software. Oh, I got to pay taxes too. So all of a sudden that 100 grand, it becomes what? Yeah, maybe, right? So that's why it's a very hard job to make money in. It's really hard to stay in it. And on top of that, it's really hard to get mentored into it because there's not that many seats at the table for this kind of job. Whew. I can keep going on forever, but we'll stop there.
Yeah, that's a lot of insight, and I feel like the way you put it into quantified numbers really helps us understand where we need to get to to start thinking about this.
Yeah. And I'll put it this way too. You got to remember the role of an agent. You don't work for me. I work for you. You're literally paying me to do the work.
Yeah.
I'm employed by the artist.
Yeah.
That's another way to sort of really think about the relationship of an agent and an artist. I'm working for you. You pay me to do this job. You can fire me at any minute. That's the other shitty thing about this job is, you build up artists to a certain point, they can fucking fire you in a second. There's no contracts at agencies. Don't ever sign a contract with an agency. Do not sign a contract. It's such a simple transaction. I book you a show for $1,000, I get $100, right? Could be 10%, could be 15. There might be other ones that do 20, but it's a very simple transaction. So don't sign your name to an agency because what they probably are after is perpetuity, meaning if I book you at Veld, I get a commission for the rest of my life, no matter who books you at that, right? So you got to watch out for those things, right? Don't sign contracts with agencies, not live music agencies anyways.
This actually really perfectly leads to my next question, which is what are some red flags to look for when you get approached by an agent? For example, things like signing a contract. Yeah. And also you mentioned there's a lot of personalities in the industry. So just in general, how do you kind of identify these red flags or things to look out for when you're talking with them?
Yeah, so one, no contracts ever. Two, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. You know, that whole thing we were just talking about being truthful to yourself. Doesn't feel good, like fuck it. You know, I've quit and I've left artists that have made significant amounts of money because I just don't want to be a part of it anymore. I didn't care about the money. I was like, I don't want to be a part of whatever this is. It doesn't feel right to me. And, you know, being true to yourself, I think, is a bit of a privilege. Not everybody can do those things. Sometimes you just can't because you need to pay your bills. You need to go, you know, you can't. You got to be there. But, you know, I think if people are promising you big things, I think that's a red flag. You know, like, you know, I mean, it's good to dream together and think about the things you want to accomplish. But those promises, you know, when I was in my band and, you know, when we were really young and you hear these people go like, oh, you got to come down. We're going to sign you a deal. We're going to get you. And you're like, guys, meet this guy. He's got a record deal for us, man. This is it. We're going to make it, right? I remember being like that when I was like, you know, 19 years old. And that's fine, right? I mean, you're young and those are exciting things and you don't really understand. At the same time, you know, sometimes you just got to take a leap of faith too. You can't also just be so reserved that you're just totally frozen. Sometimes you got to take a chance, you know, and open the door that maybe you're like, hey, shit, like, let's do it. Let's try something out. But that boils down to those commitments and signing things. If you have something that's really easy and non-committal that's going to lock you in, then why not try it out, right? And the worst part is you can just kind of say no or just walk away from it or leave. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, so earlier on you also talked a lot about touring.
Mm-hmm.
So would love to hear more about what are your favorite things about touring and what are your like least favorite things about touring?
Has anyone been on like tours before in here? Anybody? Yeah? Wow, one. Oh, you guys don't know. None of you know what it's like out there. So just kind of, again, the lessons that I've been sort of learning from reforming my band. I just went on a 12-day tour. We played 5 shows with my group. They were all festivals, so we were very pampered. It was actually, I never even saw that many times. Well, maybe I did see that back in the day. But, you know, touring at 47 is a lot different than 27. I will say that. And we used to be on the road like, you know, we'd play 5 or 6 nights a week. We'd be on stage for 2 or 3 hours. We were like a Jamiroquai meets Herbie Hancock. Like it was like 120 BPM. Yeah, I scratched at 120 BPM. It's really, I don't know how to scratch on hip hop beats. It's really hard. But there's so much room to do stuff. I still can't figure it out. And we'd play till like 2 in the morning. And then we'd be up at 9 in the morning. And we'd get up and we'd drive another 6 or 7 hours. And we get to the next gig and we do it all over again. It's hard to say, like, you know, I think, and I'm a live music guy. I think playing live is an integral part of developing an audience. I think it's an integral part about being an artist and expressing yourself. And it's fucking awesome. It's the best, you know. Don't get me wrong, getting tons of likes and views, that's exciting too. I'll never forget I did a DJ set on Twitch with my business partner, the Funk Hunters, and my wife comes around the corner, she goes, there's 5,000 people watching you. And I literally froze. I was like, why the fuck do you tell me that? And I froze. I was like, oh my God, I didn't want to know how many people are fucking watching me right now. That's crazy. But, you know, I'll never forget the roar of a crowd the first time the 20,000 people in Montreal Jazz like scoring a touchdown at a football game. It was unbelievable, you know. And again, the connection that you make with people, and they walk up to you afterwards like, oh my God, and they're pouring their hearts out to you, because that's an exchange, right? Live. I often think when you hear about these stars going like, I'm not doing meet and greets anymore, I'm not doing that anymore, and what I understand from that is like, you know, when you're an artist and you're on stage, you're pouring your heart out. You're literally giving people your energy, and they're giving it back to you. But they're also, I think they take way more from you. And you know, I remember when I heard Justin Bieber's like, I'm not doing meet and greets anymore. I can't do it. That's what I read from it. He's just like, I can't do this exchange anymore with people. It's just too draining for me. They're taking everything from me. But the adoration of that is really great. I know for a fact I have groups that have massive, you know, social media, Instagrams, all that stuff, but nothing on their Spotify's. And I know if I put them on the road, no one shows up. Like literally nobody shows up. I'm old school, you know, I discovered music through CBC, through Much Music, through the radio, you know, at a time when the internet was a one-way conversation. It wasn't a two-way conversation. And, you know, I think about how we discovered Canadian music. You know, back in the day, like even in the 2000s or 2009 or 2010, 12, 13, everybody, all the bookings at campuses were Canadian artists. Nowadays, doesn't exist. You know, I am very worried about Canadian music because I feel like young people, and maybe you can all tell me this too, I feel like young people discover music in a much different way now. It's on their phones. It's global artists, right, that they're attracted to. Our national scene is not as supported as it once was, and they're not thinking about touring Canada. They're thinking about being global. Whereas, you know, back in the 2000s, in my touring days, it was like you could think about Canada as a career and touring it back and forth and playing festivals and getting support from radio and getting support from Factor and Star Maker. All that's drying up. You know, I mean, I'm guilty of it too. You know, I have Netflix and I have Disney Plus. I don't subscribe to any Canadian. How is there not like a Canadian social media that supports Canadian artists where we can go and go, you discover Canadian artists here. That's all we do. I mean, it's there. It's the CBC, but obviously like in a much different way. And they're trying to transition. And you know, Canada's changing a lot. You know, it's music, it's culture, what we look like, what we eat. Everything's just changing so rapidly, and it's really fun to watch. But you know, when it comes to touring, it's really hard now too because of the expenses. You know, hotel rooms are like $250, $300 a night. It used to be like pre-pandemic, it was like $90. You know, now it's just like, it's so expensive. Even the touring artists that I know are just not doing it like they used to. Cross-Canada Canadian tours are becoming less and less. Everyone wants to fly in. Nobody wants to jump in a van and drive. My 47-year-old, 50-year-old band, they got in a van from Winnipeg and drove 17 hours to get to Salmon Arm to play their first show. You know, like there's still that mentality, and I was really impressed. I mean, these are a bunch of old boys in like an 8-passenger van, but that's how we did it. That's what we know. So there are groups, like I think if you want to be a touring musician, depending on what kind of music you're playing and all that stuff, there is a circuit to play. You know, we're here in Ontario and Central Canada where there's lots of different places to go. So I can keep going forever. The biggest challenges I think for touring artists right now too is that there's not much of a club scene left. There's not much of a infrastructure to support developing artists in clubs. Clubs are like, I need a full room. I need to sell a certain amount of booze. I have to sell a certain amount of tickets. There used to be way more starter rooms where you could go and that's where you start. You know, you play this 90 cap, 100 cap room and you go out. We represent this artist, this band called The Free Label. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of The Free Label. Well, of course you have because you work at midnight. Yeah. But The Free Label are a 6-piece like funk R&B band, kind of like Silk Sonic. Super styling, like, man, these dudes are, and they're all jazz students, and they got this live show that's unbelievable. But they have that old school mentality. You know, we sent them a $500 offer to go play for a group called Ripe in Denver. They're gonna play in front of 1,300 people. They jumped in their van, they drove to Denver and back, and they played that show. And you know, from that, we got other bookings. You know, they went out and did a headline tour all through Western Canada twice. And at the same time, they're crushing it on their social media. They're putting out songs. They're putting out videos. Their social media went from 10,000 people to almost, it's over 200,000 now, Jeff, I think. I don't know if you're following. Yeah, I think it's over 200,000 now. So I'm watching this combination of social media interaction. Their numbers are going up, but at the same time, they're playing live. And I remember the first tour they went on, every sound check, the booker would call me and go, oh my God, these guys are amazing. I mean, it's just sound check. This is insane. This is crazy. What do they do in New Year's? Or what do they do next summer? I'm booking this festival. And that's exactly what the purpose of that was.
Right.
Because the band is so good live. And last year we were playing a bunch of C stuff, you know, if you want to categorize festivals and events. This year they're playing Festival d'Été and Electric Forest and Jazz Winnipeg. And man, the list goes on and on. Like they're literally playing everything. And this wasn't done just because of their social media. It's because they were going everywhere. And you know, their US agent is a guy we work with very closely, Jason Kupperman. He went and saw him in New York. He called me 30 seconds into the set and said, yeah, I'm signed, I'm ready to go, let's do this. He's like, you know when you see a band and you're just like, whoa, the first minute? He's like, this is these guys. He's like, let's do this. And same thing, you know, we can't stop booking them all of a sudden. So I guess the lesson is, you know, like if you have the energy and the financing and the time and the passion to do it, I say go for it. Fucking do it. Because you're only gonna have so much of a window to do those things, to be a yes person. You know, like I remember when I was DJing, someone came up to me after the show, hey, you want to DJ my party for some beer? I was like, yeah, damn, yeah. And then I was at the party and someone walked up to me and said, hey, you want to DJ my party for $100 and beer? Yeah, absolutely. And you know, there was a good 2 years of my life where I think I was DJing a house party almost every freaking weekend, right? And it just kept going up, you know, and so like being a yes person is a big part, I think, of being a touring musician. Mm-hmm. You gotta love it. I mean, jumping in a van with a bunch of, you know, I don't know if you've been in a van with people for 24 hours straight. It gets pretty nasty in there, especially in weather like this. So anyways, again, could keep going on forever. But I like I said, you know, I came up with these fucking 3 Ps. I think it's so cheesy, but it's really a testament to like being in live music. And that's persistence. Like get up, do the work, show up, right? Oh, what's the other one? I'm starting to run it out. Presence. Like be present, you know, show up, say hi to people. When you're in a room, don't scan the room, look at people, meet people, make connections with people. Because that's a whole part of this. You're probably all very talented. There's so many talented artists. But that networking is such a crazy part of the livescape. It's such an important part. You know, like I can call anybody in this country and they'll pick up the phone and they'll look at the artist that I'm showing them. But that's come from years of shaking hands and showing up and just being places. And the last one's passion. Like you gotta fucking love the being in this, because making a living at it's really hard. But if you can and you can reach those goals, you know, that's just it's the best ever.
Awesome.
Anyways, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's so
Keep
awesome.
going.
Yeah, I think there's like a lot of gems in there and a lot of advice that can be super relatable. I'm gonna write down passion, persistence.
The 3 Ps.
Oh my gosh, I forgot the other one too. Presence as well.
Yeah, presence. It's just get up, go to the conferences. Yeah. You know, when I was an artist, I thought showcasing was such bullshit. But now that I'm on the other side, I go, wow, that's where a lot of it happens. In a lot of places I've discovered things. Yeah. Just playing shows. Getting up, going like, I don't want to go today. But you got to go. It's like going to the gym. Got to show up.
True. Yeah. And so I think there's like several people in the room who may be getting booked in Toronto, like a local gig. And some of us might be thinking of expanding outside of Toronto, maybe not a full tour, maybe a full tour, or maybe just like getting booked for their first out of town shows. Yeah. So do you have any advice on like considering those? When should we consider those? And then how do you go about like getting booked and like filling a room when you're like, new in that city?
Well, I mean, it's always about starting in your home market, right? And developing an audience there. And I think what you can do from that is kind of figure out, well, who are these people? What are they into? What are the common things? And then you can kind of think about, okay, well, where are people like that everywhere else? I mean, when I was in a band, I didn't have the analytics you can have now, and you can kind of figure out. There's a lot of bands, you know, I know this one band, Melt from Vancouver, they won't go tour a city unless they know there's listeners there. They just won't do it. There's this one artist I think about, like, Modern Biology. I don't know if any of you have heard of that guy. He attaches his modular synths to like mushrooms and flowers. And so Tarun's someone I've been booking for years. He plays in another group called Delhi to Dublin. I think of what he's done with that project, right? Was just really developed something really cool, and then looking at his analytics and starting small and just going to cities, going here, going there, doing like a 50 cap. You know, he started out doing these things called field trips where he only sold like 100 tickets. Sold the whole thing out. He went to these parks, no permits, no nothing, because he's using silent headphones. But it was a good test run to go like, are there people out there that actually want to see this? We didn't really know what it was. And then we built on that. We went, wow, we sold 100 tickets. Okay, what's the next thing? Now we're going to come up with Mushroom Church, and we're going to go back out there. We're going to try 400 cap. But it's always about developing an audience in your home market, if you want to do it that way. I don't know, you might also put out a song somewhere around the world that gets big and all of a sudden you're touring over there. But I think the important part is obviously developing something at home that's close to home. It's the cheapest, it's the easiest. That's where your family, your friends are, who are probably going to be your first fans that come out. And just like, you know, try to play as much as possible. Like just play. Because you can practice as much as you want at home, but the best way to rehearse your show is to play the shows. Yeah. You know, just keep playing and keep playing and keep playing. to a point where like you're not even really thinking about playing anymore when you're performing. It's just kind of automatic, and then you start doing other stuff because it's so easy, and you're just like, I'm just gonna add a few more notes there. And so it's all about developing that live show. I think I've heard the story of like The Weeknd. One of his very first shows was Coachella, and he would say, I was terrible, I sucked, and he probably did suck, because it's like this artist that just went from making an album in Parkdale all the way to Coachella, right? I think he played one show at Mod Club, and then he was at Coachella. You can imagine how terrible he probably was at his live show. So it probably took a lot of that. But the simplest model is to start locally, right? And then I always suggest like look at what other artists that you think you're a lot like them. They might have a lot of same fans, or that's your lane. Find artists that are just ahead of you, maybe just a bit ahead of you, ones that are at the top, and start sort of following like, well, where are they playing? And reach out to them. Just go, hey, I saw you play there. Do you know who the booker is? Or do you know who promoted your show? Can you introduce me? That networking part is such an important part of everything we do. I'm still doing it to this day where I'm just like, I don't know what that is, but I'll find out. So I would do that, reach out to other artists in other market, ask if they want to collaborate. Do you want to do a show with me? Are you doing shows? Find just like-minded people, find your community. Because if you can identify artists on your level in other cities, you can tap into their audience, and again, start building that network. And then you're like, hey, I'll do a show with you in Kitchener-Waterloo. You come here and do a show with me in Toronto or in Montreal. Start identifying even in every market where you can identify where there's some soft ticket stuff. You know what soft ticket means, or hard ticket? Hard ticket is when someone's going to come see you play. So they're coming to Lee's Palace to see you play. You're the headliner. A soft ticket is a festival, is an event. Start focusing on all the events in Toronto. There's so many street festivals. There's all sorts of stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff that goes on in this city. Even I'm just like, what? Like I live in Parkdale, so we can hear Bud Stage all the time. And my wife and I'll be like, oh, he's playing tonight. You're like, oh my God. Like Madonna is at Bud Stage right now? Like, it's like so crazy, like how much goes on in this city. Especially being a guy from Winnipeg where like literally nothing goes on half the time. It's super quiet. But those are like the fundamentals of trying to take those first steps. In Toronto, collaborate with people, play every show, find the support slots, find out who all the bookers are. For example, you guys should probably know who Mary Dida is. Mary is like one of the junior promoters at Live Nation. Mary books the Mod Club. She's young. She's looking for promoters, just like agents, grow with bands. So once I book something with Mary, I'm going to book it with her every single time since. It's called Promoter on Record. So you want to find people like that are working at your level. Like I said, a lot of you in this room will probably be like, Grant, can you be my agent? But you're probably not where you maybe need to be for me to get involved. But I've got a bunch of agents under me that are all signing their own rosters, that are all young, that are all working at the level where you are, that have the same energy. It gets harder as you get older to put the same kind of energy into developing an artist as when you're younger. So finding those people, those rooms, those promoters, Moto Live and F7 and MRG, make sure you do some research and find out who all the promoters are in every city. Because these are all national promoters too, so they'll want to book you right across the country. Just do some research, look at every single city, see what's going on, go on Instagram. Like there's always something going on. Those are just some like fundamentals to like when you want to first start getting out there.
Awesome. Yeah, that was great. And I think there was one thing you mentioned there that got me a little bit curious. You mentioned like you got to really build that home base in your like home city. Yeah. And I'm curious, like you started off in Winnipeg and then here we are in Toronto. Do you think there's a difference between like which city you started out? Like should artists be thinking about like where should be their home base? Like if we were to have like that opportunity to consider where to build their core audience first.
Who are DJs and producers here? Okay. Oh, so everybody. All right. Okay. And then anybody in like live bands or like any live artists? No. Any like just sort of social media like producers or like anybody like, so it's mostly all DJs. The DJ world's fucking crazy, right? Because it's very saturated, right? There's a lot of you. So how do you stick out? In terms of just like, where you are geographically, absolutely. I mean, the closest city to Winnipeg is Regina. I mean, I stayed in it last time I was there was last 2 years in January. I stayed in a hotel on the 6th floor and you can see the edge of town, right? It's a very small market. But next to it is Saskatoon, which is actually an amazing city. It's just a really tough town. It's small. But you go to Saskatoon, which is like, it's got this big university. It's a really hip town. They got a really good music scene. But that's like 8.5 hours away from Winnipeg as well. So as you can imagine, being in Winnipeg, to get to Toronto, it's 23 hours in a van. And I know it's like, well, why didn't you just fly? I mean, there's 8 of us and all of our gear, so it's kind of hard to fly all the time. But absolutely, I mean, when you're here in Toronto, you think of all the direct flights that you can take out of here and how much they cost. Detroit's like literally right over there. Buffalo, New York is like a pretty easy drive away. There's so many, and on top of that, there's like, there's 15, 16 million people just around the Great Lakes. And then you can go over to Quebec and there's so much going on in this province. And it's such a, like, you're an hour or 2 away or you're a drive away. So absolutely, I mean, geographically, this is a great place to be. Plus you're in Toronto, which is, this a big part of the Canadian music ecosystem is all right here. When you're in Vancouver, now you're all the way on the West Coast, which can be pretty isolating from Ontario. You've got the big time change. However, in BC, there's this amazing touring circuit in all the ski towns. It's absolutely crushes, not only just for live music, but for DJs. My bands would probably say that I'm a DJ guy, and my DJs would say that I'm a band guy. So I'm both. I played in a band as a DJ, and I love both cultures, and both scenes have their merits and their good things and their bad things. But I do know this, in BC, both those ecosystems like sort of live side by side. I feel like DJ people still go, like, people that are electronic music are really into live music too, and it's really ingrained in the touring culture there and the band culture. So there's a big touring circuit there. I'd almost say the BC touring circuit is better than the Ontario touring circuit. Like, it's kind of crazy. Toronto crowds are kind of stiff. We're kind of dicks. Like, we're just. Did they see me move? Like, people out west, they don't care, man. They give her. Like, instantly, you play a note, everyone's just like, yeah, like. It's so different. The culture is so different out there, and a lot of my roster is very West Coast, and I think that's because that's who I'm a big introvert. I don't give a crap. Let's go, let's dance, let's have a lot of fun. And then of course there's the United States, and 100% you should start thinking about the United States like immediately, like right away. Like, don't even wait if you can afford it. You can talk all day long about how hard it is to tour in the US, but how important it is to start developing down there right away. It's just such a big, the market's just so huge. I'll put it this way, booking Canada is like booking California, population-wise. Geographically, it's much smaller. You think about touring Canada, it's like this. Like maybe you go to Yellowknife, then you come down. Maybe you get a gig in Yukon, you come down, but it's this, right? United States, it's just, and then Australia is this. Actually, it's just that. It's this right here. You don't really go all the way up here. It's pretty far away. So, absolutely, I mean, geography plays a lot in what you're capable of. Of course, it all depends what kind of genre you're in and what kind of music you're into. Like a lot of the artists that I book on the West Coast, they don't ever come to Toronto. No one in Toronto would even give a crap about any of those artists that I book. But out there, like my business partner, Nick, he plays in a group called the Funk Hunters. And, we'll sell 2,500 tickets in Vancouver, and we'll sell 1,400 tickets in Edmonton and Calgary. We'll sell 1,200 tickets in Victoria and 1,000 tickets in Winnipeg. They'll come to Toronto and maybe sell 150. So, genre-wise, I find electronic music is very regional. And man, what's hot changes so quickly. It's so crazy. It's so hard to keep up with. Live music, I think, is live music. It's just live. I don't know. It's just so much different. It's really hard to stay on top of the electronic music trends. Mm-hmm. And I find some artists too, sorry to sidetrack here. I find that electronic artists often chase genres, and and don't do that. Because if you're chasing a genre, it's already over. It's going to be over by the time maybe you catch up and everyone else has gone over to this genre. And of course, touring as an electronic artist is much different. But I will say this. The one thing that frustrates me a lot about electronic artists is they want to skip a lot of things and go right to Veld. And they want to go straight to this or straight to that. I a lot of people ask me, how did I get the Funk Hunters to this level where we're not dependent on just festivals, we have fans? I'll say, you know what, I kind of instilled a band mentality into those guys. We toured. At the time, no one was really doing visuals. Like, it wasn't the LED, like when they started touring, LED walls were like still so expensive. We were coming in with like projections and setting up big shows and doing Funk Hunter shows, Funk Hunter shows, Funk Hunter shows, Funk Hunter shows, Funk Hunter show, Funk. No club gigs, no regular nights, Funk Hunter shows, non-fucking stop. And we just kept doing them and just kept pounding them. And that's what I find that a lot of electronic artists are a little bit scared of. Like, you have to develop a hard ticket. So back to developing an audience, you need to be able to do a show. I can play the Drake and sell 200 tickets. That's what you need. That's a benchmark. That's what you need to be able to do. Then you got to be like, okay, I'm going to go play Velvet Underground. I'm going to sell 400, 450. Then I'm going to go to Mod Club and I'm going to sell 650. And I'm telling you right now, once you start selling tickets, Embrace, Live Nation, all those big festivals on top of those social media numbers you have, you go, I can sell tickets. Because that's what they are all about. We need to sell tickets. And then all of a sudden, you go from the local DJ that would, we're going to give you $250. We're going to tell you about your slot about an hour before you're about to play. Right? It's crazy, man. It kills me inside as an agent. But once you have those stats, there's no reason why you'll ever have to take that $250 gig again. You'd be like, $250? Yeah, yo, dude, I sell 600 tickets in this market. My show grows 20 grand. That's how much I'm worth. That's it. It's not about the money, but it's about the money, right? And that's the power that you hold. That's a card that is undeniable, because you could be like, yeah, I've got 80,000 followers on Instagram, but we don't really know exactly what that's worth, right? Or what it's going to equate to in the live sector. But one thing I know for sure is that when you can sell hard tickets and you see the growth, that's what it's all about. How do I get you to play history? What's the path? That's the goal. Because the festivals, you're going to get to play once or twice every other year, and that's it, right? There's only so many in Canada. I mean, the United States, there's a lot more. But if you can get to history and you have a fan base, that's called a career. That's called, I can go to history every year and I can sell that out. That's 150,000. That's 70 grand in my pocket. That pays for my fucking mortgage or whatever the hell for the year. That's a career. And that's what I'm talking about when I talk about live space, and especially in the electronic realm. That's something you should think about. Mm-hmm. Think about, how do I become a hard ticket selling artist?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate more about, you were talking about building up the Funk Hunters and like they were playing clubs? So can you elaborate?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's so many regular nights, right? You go play the regular house night at whatever club. I'm gonna be honest. Like, I got to Toronto really late in life, so I didn't get to go clubbing. I had a kid, and that's it. I'm like, I don't know any of the clubs here in Toronto really all that well. I know all the live music clubs and where all the live music happens, or the hard ticket stuff. But it's sort of like, you go to Calgary, you play whatever DJ, whatever Thursday night that's doing house, or whatever Saturday night's doing bass, or whatever Friday night's doing drum and bass. We didn't do any of those. We stayed away from that.
So you're doing like Velvet Underground kind of vibe?
We did Velvet Underground. You're playing the Funk Hunter show. We're going to the Funk Hunter show. What are you doing tonight? Well, we bought tickets for the Funk Hunter show. No, we bought tickets for Subculture, whatever, or house music, whatever. We kept them away from that constantly, and we got calls to do those things all the time. Maybe we did one or two, along the way. But it always would come back to the hard ticket, because that was the goal. If we did one of those nights, we always made sure that our billing was predominant. Yeah, we're like, we need our name big. We want to make sure people are knowing, because we always felt like people don't go to those nights for whoever's playing. They're just going because that's the thing to do on a Saturday night. If you want to hear that genre, they usually have touring DJs. And like, that was the method that we used for those guys. And it worked really, really well. And we often would do like a big show. There used to be this amazing club in Calgary called the Hi-Fi Club. Like, literally every huge DJ that played this club. It was like, it's 200 cap, it's tiny. But it was like the culture, it was like, Calgary's such a cool DJ-centric, cultured city. If you ever want to go to Calgary, I highly suggest it as an electronic artist. it's such a young city, and DJ culture is such a big part of it. And the Hi-Fi Club is where it was at. You know, like, you know, you just like Diplo played there. Like, just think of any artist, massive artist that plays huge stage, they played that club. And they didn't play it for the money. They played it because that was the fucking cool thing to do. All the tastemakers are there. All the cool kids are there. And you played that place. And that's what the Funk Hunters, we'd go play 1,000 Cap. Next time we would play, we'd go to Hi-Fi Club. And I remember an agent, a friend of mine asked me, like, why would you do that? Why would you play such a big one and go to a small one? I'm like, well, no one can get into the small one. It's kind of cool, right? It's kind of cool that no one, I couldn't get in, man. Ah. So then they would be like, okay, I'm going to the next show. I'm going to go to the Palace next show. And then we'd go back and play the small club. And it was just like the lineup would just be like freaking way down the block, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. Those poor kids all sitting out in like February weather. Not going to get in. Yeah, man.
So you talked about hard tickets.
Yeah.
So let's say as a up-and-coming DJ producer,
Yeah.
you do a show and then you know that like kind of like roughly 100 people are coming out for you.
Yeah.
And you know they're there for your set, not for the headline.
Yeah.
How do you kind of like validate that statement when you want to bring on as leverage when you're talking to the big companies?
Like to the next one. Well, I mean, you would say, hey, you know, I'm this artist. Here's my music. Here's my history in town. We just played at the Drake. We sold it out, you know, and that's the numbers you can use. You know, we sold it out at this number. I know Jeff over here just had a success with one of his artists. And I remember you coming in and going, we sold this many tickets. It's like, yeah, you know, like that's amazing. That's what you should be doing. Then you can use that leverage of not just like, hey, I want to move into the next club. It's like, hey, Live Nation, hey, Embrace, hey, whoever. Here's my numbers. Can I support that big show? Can I get onto that show at the Danforth or at Rebel? Or, you know, that's what you can use with that leverage, right? Is trying to like, how can I start using that? Or, hey, Veld, hey, you know, Electric Island, you know, here's what I'm doing in town. Here's the thing that I'm building. So you sort of map it out. I mean, you know, obviously that's when, you know, people like me come in handy because they'll open up my emails because they get a zillion emails from a lot of people. But the proof is in the numbers, right? Here's my proof, you know, and then I think, you know, then you do it again, you know, then you move up another room and see if you can try and do that again, right? And repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. There's so many cool things of like, I've met a lot of artists who have sort of maybe weeklies or monthlies, and they really build a community out of that. And then they can use that as sort of leverage to get to other places as well, or use that same roadmap, or bringing that club night to Calgary or to Vancouver, where those things sort of spill out. I've got a group named Dwayne Gretzky. You guys have probably never heard of them. They're a cover band. We just played Bud Stage on Thursday. You know, and it's been a trip. It wasn't the full cap, but we sold just under 8,000 tickets, which is freaking amazing for a cover band. But watching all the things that they had to do, because they don't have any released music, right? It's all cover music. But they're like the best cover. Like you'll see them and you'll just be like, wow, that's insane. I mean, they've got 8 lead singers, and that's what their whole thing is, because they can match the right singer with the right song, and that's what I believe how they've become very successful. But just watching all the things that they've done over the past 8 to 10 years. Actually, they've been around for almost 15 years. I've been part of the story for about 8 years. But there's those gigs, there's money gigs, and then there's gigs that you do it for your career. You know, like how many shows I've played where I got paid $5,000, but I played in front of nobody, and it's like, it sucks, right? You're like, it sucked, but I get paid $5,000. But then it's sort of like, hey, do you want to open up for so-and-so at the Danforth Music Hall? It's sold out. We only got $500. And you're like, well, I'm worth, you know, $5, but dang. Like, yeah, that's a long game. That's a long game play. I call those long game plays because you're going to get to play in front of new people. So you can use those stats to kind of get those things. Yeah.
So I'm used to the approach of waiting for promoters to come to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like you would recommend advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
To promoters.
Never stop advocating for yourself. And keep reaching out. You know, keep reaching out. Try and keep emails short. I mean, I'm guilty of writing really long emails too, but it all depends what the relationship is. Keep advocating. You got to keep reaching out. You know, because I think people, you know, something's happening with your career when people start reaching out to you. Yeah, and that's true. You know, I've got artists where the free label inquiries coming in nonstop. You know, I've got other artists who aren't really doing as much and there's not much going on and they call me up going like, where's my gigs? And it's like, well, what are you doing right now? You know, I haven't heard from you in 4 months. You haven't put a track out. You've done like 2 posts on your social media. Again, it all depends the kind of artist you are, but I would say always be reaching out. Yeah, absolutely. And when you see shows go up, you know, maybe there's no support, reach out to that promoter. Go, hey, do you got support? Do you have support for that? You got support for that? You just got to be on these people's radars because you will get a call from them if you're persistent enough and they'll just like, oh, I remembered, yeah, this guy kept hitting me up. His music was really good. Oh, here it is. Yeah. Hey, so-and-so, this group right here. Back to that whole thing of discovering artists for myself, it usually comes from promoters. Like, because they're the ones that are really working at a grassroots level because they're always looking for slots, right? I got to book opening bands. I got to book opening bands. I got to book opening artists. I got to book opening DJs. So they're usually a good resource of when I find out about artists. Like, this is going on. You got to pay attention to this. Just saw this artist. They're amazing. You know, there's this artist on our roster named Shamani. She's a bass artist, but she's like a live artist. She's not a DJ. We just started hearing about her through channels in Vancouver. You know, I got to know her at a very early stage in her career. I said, hey, listen, I'm going to sign you because I see the potential, but there's not much to do right now for me. Like, I just want you to lean on me, keep doing your thing. Just 2 months ago, she went from like 6,000 followers to like 22,000 now, I think. And she's been just getting better and better at what she's doing online. And all of a sudden now the conversation changes when we're pitching and I'm like, hey, check this out. Oh yeah, I remember you sent this to me like 2 years ago. I said, yeah. I didn't want you to book it. I was planting a seed. So that the next time I sent it to you, you go, oh yeah, Grant, I remember when you sent that. Oh, what's going on? Oh, dang. Yeah, okay. Oh, she's got a couple festivals in her. Okay. Oh yeah. Wow, that video's gone viral. Yeah, okay, let's talk now. Let's get this going. Yeah. Yeah, no problem.
Any other questions? We can just continue to open the floor now.
Is there a go-to platform or solution for yourself to identify any emerging cities that you weren't aware about before? For example, I guess like an audience that is kind of emerging. You know, Chicago maybe being an example. Like, how do you know that you want to go play a show at Chicago because your audience is big enough in that city?
Yeah. Oh man, see, I use something called Roster, which is a little bit more agent focused, and it's started becoming, there's like a lot of different things where it compiles all the social media and all the streaming stats in one place. There's all sorts of different platforms. That's the one I use. I'm trying to remember some of the other ones where you can kind of look at an artist, like someone says, hey Grant, have you checked this artist? I go there and type it in and it just goes blah, 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 and it spits everything out. And you're like, okay, you can kind of see where everything's at. And you can't see where the metrics are at. For me, a true metric is the streaming numbers, the Spotify numbers with Apple. For me, that tells me that there's actually people listening, right? And it's actually monthly listeners. But then you kind of go like, then I look at the playlists. So maybe this is a sidebar of what you're talking about. But then I look, okay, how many playlists are they on? Oh, they're not on many. Okay, that means like there's actual people going to their page to listen to their music. So, I mean, I use Roster. There was one I was using pre-pandemic. I can't remember the name of it. But there's lots of different places out there where you can sort of compile the analytics. Now, you're looking for a place where a certain type of genre is getting more popular than others. Is that what you're kind of looking for? Or?
It's also an interesting avenue to explore.
Yeah. Again, man, you know, the electronic, there's a woman at our agency named Nirvana Howell. She's our electronic gal. She's focusing a lot on the electronic stuff. She's a lot younger than me, so she's like really on top of it, and she's like an electronic head. You know, I feel like people that are really into electronic, they're like the new jazz heads. You know, because like, man, there's so many electronic artists. Every day she's sending me stuff. I'm like, who the fuck is this? And it's like, oh my God, they have 1 million followers? I've never heard of this person. Like, but there's so much. It's so hard to stay on top of things. And like, it's just so hard. But you know, I still think there's a lot of tangibles on both sides of the live music, of like bands and DJs. There's different approaches to how you do things. You know, obviously in the DJ world, it's all about singles. There's very few people putting out records, like actual albums. I think the live music world is kind of more skewing that way these days too. It's like singles. It's exhausting as an artist how much you have to put out to stay on top of things. It's so crazy. Like the competitiveness of the infrastructure of what you're all dealing with as artists these days is so different than what I dealt with, because like I think it was MySpace when I was touring. Like, you know, MySpace was so archaic. I think the band that blew up on MySpace first was the Arctic Monkeys. That was the first, I believe that was the first viral band ever. Like that went like fucking massive, was the Arctic Monkeys. And I remember going to their MySpace page and be like, how did this happen? Like, how did they do that? And they didn't do anything. They just put music up on MySpace and their album blew up. And it's so cool to see they're still like a band and touring all these years later. But I think there's so many different tools. It all depends what you're after. But the genre thing would be pretty kind of cool to figure out. Yeah, right on. Yeah, anyone else? Yeah, yeah, sure.
How does your role as an agent differ from a management? And does it ever overlap?
It totally overlaps. I mean, well, I have a lot of artists who don't have management. They're self-managed. I don't know if anyone knows the group Jurassic 5. It's a hip hop class. Yeah, so I've been working with Charlie Tuna. He's the guy with the really deep voice. I'm the verbal urban monster. Charlie and I have had a relationship for close to 17 years. I'm a massive Jurassic 5 fan. So like, you know, 19-year-old me is like, ah! Every time I talk to Charlie, it's just like, wow, I can't believe I'm dealing with this guy every day. He's self-managed, right? And I help him on a lot of stuff on a management level that I don't really charge him for or anything like that. But I book him all over the world, except for Europe. I book him everywhere. I mean, we focus on live. That's all we focus on. You know, I book your shows. I get direction from my artist and from my managers. That's how I do my work best. What do you want? When do you want to do it? How are we going to do it? You know, so when do you want to tour? What rooms do you want to play? When? Just do one already? How? You know, how are we going to do it? You flying? Are you driving? And then I'm going to figure that out. What festivals do you want to play? And that's a stupid question, because most artists put every goddamn festival in the country. And I'm like, don't think of it that way. How do you get to Osheaga? Just like how do you get to history? How do you get to Osheaga? Osheaga is like highly curated. That thing sells out every year no matter what. So that team gets to book whoever the hell they want, and they really curate their lineup. But how do we get there, right? What are the things, if you look at it, there's maybe only 2 or 3 or 4 Canadian artists on that bill every year. And then you got to go like, well, what are they? You know, the Beach, I think it was the Beaches. Mm-hmm. Who else was on there? I'm trying to think. It was what's that? Yeah. And Begonia from Winnipeg. And then you gotta go like, you know, how did they get there? You know, how do you get there? You know, I know all the Eventco people. I can call them all up, right? And it's like, how do you get those people in Osheaga? What are those benchmarks? How do you get on to Veld? You know, how do you get on to Electric Island? How do you get to Shambhala? You want to go to Shambhala? I know everyone at Shambhala. I usually have 12 artists at Shambhala. I didn't go to Shambhala this year. It felt good. It felt good. It's exhausting. It's crazy getting there. Or Base Coast. You know, I worked with the librarian for years. You know, Andrea are good friends. And you know, how do you get to Rifflandia? How do you get to Calgary Stampede? You know, how do I open up for Diplo at Calgary Stampede? What are all those sort of benchmarks to kind of get to those festivals? And thinking about your pathway to those kind of things, right? And it's a combination of all those things. It's the music, it's the social media, and it's selling those tickets, right? And having that calling card. It's not easy, man. The festival landscape is it's a crazy one, and it's in like a state of emergency. Like our touring circuit is not in good health, you know, especially the festival ones. They're hanging on. I think of, and I know for this crowd doesn't mean anything, but for example, Toronto Jazz, the TO Jazz, they used to produce 300 shows a year. They're down to 100. Okay, that happened in the last 8 years. So it's the options are steadily declining. There's more and more artists more than ever. It's tough. It's a really tough landscape. So anyways, managers help manage your career. That's where you usually see contracts, because things that managers do may not pay off for a couple years. You know, they may start the conversation with a label that's going to take a year, and managers will be like, "I want to get paid for that. The deal happened after you fired me." So the management, like a manager's role, is a lot more intimate. Don't get me wrong, I need to stay connected to my artists. It's a very important part. I have a relationship with them. I talk to them. But managers are going to help manage your career. They're the ones that are going to pick up the phone at 2 a.m. when you're having a crisis. You know, agents will be like, what the fuck what are you calling me for? Like, call your tour manager. Because not that I won't bail on you, but I'll be like, you know, agents, I book your show and then I'm already going to book you the next one. You know what I mean? Like I'm done. My role's over here. I give it to you. I give it to your tour manager. Give it to your manager. Give it to your label. I'm the fuck out of here. I'm gonna go book the next show. I'm gonna find the next show. That's what I'm doing over here. And of course, if there's emergency, I'll show back up. But and of course, you know, we manage all sorts of things, right? But again, that whole transaction of an agent is very simple. Yeah, 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 man.
So you mentioned earlier about kind of when you would need an agent, and it seems like a manager would be working closely with the agent and kind of know when you need an agent as well.
Totally.
So like when do you know when you would need a manager? Because it seems like you have both of your companies.
Yeah, well, we don't have a management division. I find that having your agent and your management in one place is kind of maybe a detriment. It's sort of like checks and balances, right? If your manager and your agent are the same company, they're kind of probably more on, you know, here you are and here's your manager and agent over here. Whereas if you have a manager, another guy, your manager is more over here on your side. It's also like kind of a red flag, I think, and it happens. It's totally fine too, but being your manager and your label, I think, is always a bit of a detriment. I think your management, your label should always be two separate things. They're just very different relationships. You need someone to advocate for you to add a label, because labels can be frustrating. You're always going to be on them. But like I said, you know, I guess when I see management stuff, I have a lot of artists that don't have managers, but I'll sit down with them and strategize and give them some guidance and go like, hey, these are the things to do. Here's what we can do. Let's make some plans. But implementing those plans, like again, a manager on a day-to-day, it's like, that's not something that I do. Yeah. And listen, how do you find a manager? I have fucking no idea. You meet most managers and they're like, oh, it was just their best friend and they started getting big and now I'm a manager. You know, like that's honestly, like you meet so many managers that's their story. They just happen to be there and their friend's like, do you want to do the shows with me? Could you come with me? Could you carry my gear? I find that a lot of managers, that's how it usually happens. Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh.
One question is, out of curiosity, why is it so hard to book and bring artists to like Brazil, Argentina, and like South America, Latin America, of the world? Because I feel like I'm from Brazil.
Yeah.
And we are like one of the most passionate like crowds.
Yeah.
Ever. Every single artist that goes there, we like sell every single ticket like possible.
Yeah.
And it's always like hard for us to see like our favorite artists, and I just like
in Brazil.
yeah.
I gotta imagine, okay. I don't know the Brazilian landscape too well, but I can probably think of a couple things. It's kind of like Quebec. There's a saying in Quebec, it's hard to get into Quebec and it's hard to get out of Quebec. And I think that's probably one. Like I think when I think of Brazil, I'm like, I don't even know the first call to make. I don't know anybody there. Do they speak? I know they speak English, but do they? I mean, there's a language barrier, but there's also the cultural thing. It's so far away. You know, it's good question, right? I'm just sort of thinking about my own brain when I think about Brazil. I'm like, I don't know where to start. Who do I call? What are the markets? I know maybe 2 cities there. Is there other places to play? And then it probably boils down to money. I don't know. I don't actually know the answer to that question. It's like, I just think about South America as a whole. I've done very little business there. The business that I have done there is because I have a contact in Canada, the United States, that happens to be doing business there. It's kind of like in Europe, you know, like I can't be a European agency because I can't do Europe because there's too many countries to learn. There's too much language. There's too much cultural. It's just the whole cultural thing of like how you do business. It's like the electronic community is super different from the indie music community. I don't know if you ever dealt with the reggae community. They're on like another level of like, what the hell is going on? They're like, it's so different. And I deal with a lot of indigenous artists, and dealing with the indigenous community is fucking totally different than dealing with the South Asian community. It's just like how I don't represent too many South Asian artists because I'm a fucking white guy. and I don't speak Punjabi, and I'm not part of the scene, or why I don't represent a ton of hip hop. I'm not part of the hip hop scene. You know, you can't just, you know, it's hard to just get into a scene. You gotta go there and learn it, be a part of it, network, and commit to it. You know, it's like writing a book. You guys watch that movie about, what's it called? I just watched it again yesterday, about the guy who wakes up and all of a sudden no one knows the Beatles music. And that woman says to him, he's like, you couldn't wrote, I saw you at Strawberry Fields. He's like, yeah. He's like, you can't write about Strawberry Fields unless you've been there, right? And he's like, yeah. So it's sort of same thing, right? Like, I guess it's like I've had a lot of Spanish speaking artists approach me about booking them Canada. And I say, listen, man, I don't know anything about that scene. I don't know. And they're like, no, you can do this. And I'm like, I don't even speak Spanish. I don't know that community. I don't know that scene. You have to find somebody that knows it. So maybe that's it. You know what I mean? Like, and also international artists, they hardly even come to this country, you know, because it's just sort of like, I don't care.
I feel like there's something, complete side note, I feel like there's something with like currency as well, like currency exchange of like, for example, if you sell X amount of tickets for like $100 worth in USD, maybe that's like easier to pay for a US citizen, but like what is the income I don't know, but like what is the income level of an average Brazilian citizen, and how does their ability to spend compare to like another person?
No, absolutely. I mean, you know, headliners are $1 million US. That's like 135. There's so 350, 400 grand more on Canadian dollars. You know, Americans kind of look at Canada and they're just like, I don't care. You know, like Toronto, yeah, they understand Toronto. They might understand Montreal, maybe Vancouver, but the rest of the country, they're just like, I don't care. You know, I don't care. Like, there's a band, Charlie Tuna tours with this band called Slightly Stupid. They're huge in the United States. They play Bud stages in every single market in the United States, but they've never come to Canada because no one will pay them the $250,000 or $500,000 US they want. Because they're just, and maybe if they have, they're just like, we're from Southern California. What is, yeah. But that's probably, there's probably many reasons, you know, and probably the money is probably another thing, right? It's expensive to go to those parts of the world. It's like Australia. I've booked a lot of Australian tours, and trust me, man, they're never profitable. No, they're vacations. They're vacations, man. Yeah, they're expensive.
Okay, any other last questions, and we'll close.
Yeah.
So, what kind of advice would you have for someone in my shoes, where I've been producing for 5 months, a couple hundred followers on SoundCloud, just getting into it, to do a first live event in the future with no real, like, you know, because I'm a heavy bass artist, so I feel like it would be hard to crack in as a first show, but as an opener, if I don't have any shows under my belt.
Yeah, I would, okay. When you're, it's all about the music, man. Like, you know what I mean? It's just about the music. Just keep making great music. Don't worry about doing a headline thing yet. Try and find where the other bass people are, and just about that whole story of like finding the promoters, finding those rooms, sending them emails going, hey, I'm so-and-so, hey, I'm so-and-so, hey, I'm so-and-so.
That's what I was trying to say. Is
Yeah.
that appropriate for someone, you know, in my stage or even in 5, 6 months?
100%. Send them your best track. Don't send them everything, right? Because I'm sure you got a few tracks that you're like, those are not my best one. This is this one. This is the one you want to listen to. And just keep hitting them up, you know, and do it like, you know, every 2-3 months. Here's a new track, here's a new track, here's a new track. And then hopefully you'll get that break where that goes, yeah, you know what? I got a slot for you. You know, it's the 3 a.m. slot at the end of the night, but that's where you start, right? And that's where you got to go and start. Or it's the first slot of the night. Perfect, no problem. Then start thinking about, okay, you're not going to play bangers at 9, right? Then you got to start thinking about the kind of set that you want to present and think about that musically. There's a woman on our roster named Joanna Magic. She's played the Fractal Force at Shambhala a few years. She usually plays at like 8, so she gets the early slot. She's like, Grant, I need a late night slot. I just want to fucking bash people over the head with some crazy music. I'm like, okay. And I convinced them to give her the 4 a.m. I got you 4 a.m. That's the best I could do. She really wanted like 1 or 2. I was like, we're not going to get that, but I got you 4. And she crushed it, right? And she came back. She's like, oh man, I didn't have to just play, like I didn't have to do the warm up. I got to like destroy people at 4 a.m. Because actually, I think at Shambhala, it's like a pretty good slot. Everyone's flying at 4 a.m. there. I don't know, you guys ever been to Shambhala? Anybody? Anyone to Shambhala before? No?
Drive past it every summer when I was a kid.
Yeah, Shambhala. It's bananas. It's like, it's crazy. It's an effort. It's a lot of effort, but like, you know, it's crazy, right? It's a really fun festival. Anyways, but that's what I would probably suggest, right? Just find where all the bass people, the bass heads are happening, the bass nights. Again, those club nights, right? Where you can kind of start and cut your teeth and not worry too much about the headline stuff just yet. But I think when you do those things, like throw a party in a room this size, you know, like, you know, invite all your friends out and get that going there, and then you can use that stuff, get a photographer, get some good social media going, and create that scene, right? That people are going to see. Yeah, no problem. Right on.
All right. Thanks, Grant, for your time.
Yeah. But yeah, and like, listen, like, you know, it's Grant at midnightagency.com. Like, reach out anytime. You know, like I like talking to artists. I'm an artist again, just like all of you. Like, sounds like I'm gonna be making more music again, which is crazy. But yeah, just keep going, right? Keep going. Just keep going. Just keep getting up and you know, stay true to yourself. Stay true to yourself. Love doing this. Be passionate. You know, be lucky to kind of do it. And you know, whatever happens in your careers, again, just always notice those victories. Just notice the victories. You know, even if they're small. You know, even just gaining another 10 followers or getting a few streams or getting that first gig. It's all about victories and fucking vision boards, people. For 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. And then review that every other month. And then when you get something, wipe it off, write up the new one, right? What's the new goal? And just keep climbing the ladder, right? And just keep marking stuff off and you know, that's it. Right on, man. All right.
Thanks, Grant. This was great.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, I know you probably had a lot more questions, but probably good.
No, you actually